Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. And we are back with another set review for Chaos Rising. I'm excited for this. This will be our set for NAIC once these cards are revealed. And honestly, after that, we have all summer to play around with these cards. But as always, I'm not here by myself. I have Dev with me. Dev, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, it's one of those. It feels like the last set in this set has been kind of elongated. So it's been a while since we've had to dig into new cards. So I'm excited to go into the cards because we've known these cards have been in existence since early March.
Yeah, it's been a long while, and I know we just got Perfect Order, and we've only had a couple major tournaments already at the time of recording with Perfect Order, and we're already getting Chaos Rising. So I know it's a quick turnaround here, but again, I think we needed this change, and we'll go through and see if these cards are enough to change the format. Because right now, Dragon Pole is still the most dominant deck with what 30+% at major tournaments.
39%, almost 40% of Prague was Dragapult variant of some degree.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I went to Toronto and it was like 50% of Lugia V Star in a room.
Yeah.
So hopefully this will kind of bring a nice refreshing format, but we'll we'll determine that as we go through. So what we'll do is we'll actually start with the promos since we do have that information. We'll go through the four promos cards for those going to a pre-release, expecting what to expect a little bit. We'll talk about those, and then we'll go into the set with Ninja Spinner. So we are getting exact Ninja Spinner. It's only an 83 card set, plus maybe a couple cards from unreleased gym promos. But ultimately, this is a much smaller set than what we're expecting and what we're used to. So, Dev, what are your thoughts on that?
It's the trend that Perfect Order kind of started with this new regulation block that we talked about during the rotation, right? We're losing 1,100 cards. They only added 90 new cards. Now they're adding another 80 some odd cards. The playing pool for Worlds of 2027 is going to be drastically smaller than the amount of cards in the playing pool for even just Internets or even Worlds of 2026. It's a very interesting time where Pokemon was creating 200 plus sets, 6, 7 sets in a row, so almost 2 full years of 200 plus card sets. Now we're getting 90 to 100 card sets, which honestly most players would be generally happier with. Collectors generally happier with. It makes the collection piece of the game easier to do. So I'm intrigued. I don't think it's going to be 83 cards. I think we're going to be closer to like a 100 card set because there's going to be some reprints and stuff in there. But it's a fairly small set, and from what I've seen in the cards, we'll go into details. I'm not genuinely overwhelmed with this set. It's kind of a mid feeling set. It's not underwhelming by any means, but it doesn't make me super excited to try to find a new archetype.
Yeah, I know I was talking to some of my locals about this set, and we're like, if you're looking at the Japanese meta, the Chaos Rising or Ninja Spinner didn't really make a big impact. There's a couple cards that are interesting, and we'll talk through those. And we saw a couple of new archetypes on the stream for Fukuoka or Osaka, whatever the last Japanese major tournament is or was. So we'll go with that. And interesting enough, I believe this weekend at the time of release of this recording, we have the Aichi Japanese championships as well. So they won't have any other new cards. So it'll be this set again. So we'll see if the Japanese player base found more creative solutions or creative decks to feature the Ninja Spinner set. I don't believe there's any other cards that are going to be released until then. If they are, my apologies. I don't really keep up to date with the Japan stuff. But I know Aichi is just around the corner, and they also have their expanded tournament, which we probably won't touch on just because I'll tell you what win already. It's probably going to be Regidrago. Um, but with that, I think let's go ahead and talk about the four promos in the kits that we are going to be expecting at the pre-release events if you do decide to go. So, Dev, you want to start off with the first one that you see on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first of the four promos, I think, is arguably the best of the four, in my opinion. It's the one that at least I'm the most excited about, which is the Delphox card. So the Delphox is a stage 2 fire type, 160 HP, has the ability Flaring Magic. Once during your turn, you may discard a basic fire energy from your hand in order to use this ability. Draw until you have 7 cards in hand. That's not bad.
No,
Um,
not at all.
I think the people are like, oh, you're discarding fire energy. Yeah, fire makes you run like 12 to 14 energy in the deck naturally anyway. So discarding one and then being able to recover it is not a hard little ask. And then it's attack for 2 fire, energized storm, 30 times, attack does 30 for each energy attached to all Pokemon. That's going to be fun. I think in a standard formation archetype for Delphox, Delphox with Team Rocket's Spidops. So you discard the energy to draw and then recur it with the Spidops. Makes sense to me. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of other ways to just get a whole bunch of fire energy on your board. And then that's ignoring the fact that your opponent's going to have energy on board. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a very fun card during pre-release because pre-release decks typically are like 10 to 15 energy anyway,
yeah,
minimum. So that's a good piece. And then before we go into any of the other kits, all four of these cards are stage twos, which means the kits themselves are going to have a lot of good trainers in them to encourage evolution deck building. So this would be a very fun. If you need trainers for those type of decks, this would be the pre-release to go to that.
yeah. Dev and I were talking about that. Obviously, this is all speculation. We don't know what's in the kits. I'm not even going to be able to go to a pre-release event this time around. But yeah, being in stage two, they have to have like rare candies. They'll have to have some support to help make sure that the game will still continue because since there's not a lot of stage ones or basic that these promos are about, they need to encourage and they need to provide ways to get to the stage twos because that's the point of these promos. They want you to play these cards. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, I think based on context here, there should be a lot of trainers to encourage this type of deck building with this pre-release. And yeah, the Delphox I think is a really cool card. For a single prizer, you can do a lot of damage. I can see this going well in a Mega Charizard deck because you can play it with Oricorio. The Oricorio will put all the energy in play, and then you can power up your Delphox and do a bunch of damage with that. If you're going against a grass deck with the Meganium engine, this is just going to be a field day for you because you're already hitting for weakness, and they're going to play a bunch of energy as well. So that's just going to be see how high of damage output you can do. That will be a fun game to play. And then just a lot of cards we're going to see, and we'll see later on in this set, really encourage putting a lot of energy into play.
Mm-hmm.
So this takes advantage of that type of gameplay that Pokemon is creating with this set. And also just the draw ability, even if you don't attack with Delphox, the fact that you can draw, get 7 cards, to all my Cellular Edge players, I think this is definitely a 101 inclusion if you can put room in there for it. Just so you can get the energy into your discard and then attack with the Cellular Edge. Like you're already playing something that's very low to the ground for setup purposes, and this can just help you get there as well. And also, Neo Upper can go with this card with this card as well for easy single attachment attack too. So there's just a lot going for Delphox going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a basic stage two, so Rosa's encouragement can be used to recur some of that energy as well. So there's a lot of different potentials with Delphox. As a fire type, it's in a decent position, but we'll see. Stage two, single prizer, a little slower deck right now. We're in a faster format, so we'll definitely see how the Delphox gets positioned. Has a lot of upside. This is a minimum of 3 of in most decks. I think it can be its own archetype outside of being just a draw engine. So we'll see.
Mhm. Yeah, so we'll go into the second promo in this set, and it's again another stage two. It's Ampharos, which we were used to Ampharos because the Team Rock is Ampharos, I believe, was a promo when Dustin Rivals came out. So now we're looking at the regular Ampharos. So it's 160 HP with the Synchro Pulse ability. If you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, attacks used by this Pokemon do 80 more damage to your opponent's active before applying weakness and resistance. And then for a Lightning and Colorless is Flashing Bolt for 140, but during your next turn you can't use Flashing Bolt. So again, this is actually a very interesting card. We have cards like Judge. We'll have cards like Special Red Card, which we will talk about later on in this discussion. We have other Pokemon like Vivian that can pair with this really well to make sure that you have the same amount of cards in hand as your opponent, where you can do 220 as a single prize attacker for just 2 energy. And with Dynamotor in play, with Crispin in play, there's a lot of easy ways to power up Ampharos in one turn. So there's a lot going for it. I think the Delphox is definitely the more stronger card, but this isn't a bad card, especially in a pre-release format as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you trigger its ability, it does 220 for its own attack. So it's one of those situations that 220 is not a bad hit for 2 energy, and then you can just recycle the. You can't attack next turn. Claws doesn't really matter in Pokemon. We've learned that. It just makes you have to be creative. So don't be afraid of that.
Mhm.
It's definitely a card that will have you can have definitely have fun with at pre-release, and I think it will kind of put itself into a position in the standard format for sure.
Yeah.
The third promo is Crobat. Crobat is a Stage 2 Darkness Pokemon, 130 HP. It has the ability Nightmare Maneuver or Nighttime Maneuvers. Once your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active spot, you may use this ability. Search your deck for a card, and then shuffle your deck and put that card on the top of your deck. So it's a really good way to kind of just triggering some shenanigans or just easy card draw. Um, you could use this Crobat to set up a Slowking attack. You can use this card to get a card you need from a draw from a Pheasantipity or from any other type of draw engine you have for the deck. Pairing that with a single energy darkness attack, Poison Sound Wave, it does 80, and then your opponent Pokemon is now poisoned and confused. So you can use it to set up attacks. You can use it to kind of just set up damage. Confusion and poison are all right status conditions. As we've seen, status conditions really don't have the best buffer right now. But you could pair this with a supporter we're going to talk about when we get to the supporters to really kind of just cause some chaos. It's an interesting card. I'm not going to say it's the greatest card in the world. It has some really good potential partners and synergy pieces, but its ability is solid. Its attack is all right. You're gonna have if you get this in the pre-release, you're not going to be upset. But it's one of those situations where I'm interested to see how you can utilize it once it gets into the standard card pool.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think this is really will show its true power, maybe more in a GLC format, where 80 damage is actually kind of significant. But even then, it's not really so. But in a dark deck, you can pair this with Boot Bonnet, you can pair this with the Petron, with Perilous Jungle, and you can turn that 80 into something a little more that is better in that type of format. Again, it's a 1-1-1 line, but there's other Zubat and Golbats that you can pair with this to really take advantage of the ability and the attack as well. Because really, a single Dark Energy is not hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is more for maybe GLC. It will be great in pre-release because everyone's more or less on the same playing level. But outside of that, will we see this in competitive play or even just at locals? Not so much. I think there's much better cards for what you're looking for as well. But again, it's an interesting card. The ceiling is very low with having a single dark energy for an attack. So I think that kind of balanced out this card very nicely. And we'll go into the last promo, which is going to be Gudra. It's a dragon type Pokemon with 160 HP with the slimy, slidey ability. Say that 5 times fast. When your opponent's active Pokemon retreats, your opponent flips a coin. If it's tails, energy for its retreat cost is not discarded and they don't switch the Pokemon. The effects of slimy sliding doesn't stack. So this is just a way to try to prevent some retreat shenanigans against your opponent. Um, if they flip tails, they use the retreat for a turn. That is our interpretation. We'll probably get a little more clarification with the FAQs closer to pre-release, but based on the wording and the mechanics of the game, that will make the most sense to us. Again, don't take what we're saying for gold exactly. Wait to the FAQ. And if you have any further questions, reach out to your local professors. They'll be able to interpret that for you as well. And then for a water psychic, Dragon Pulse 160, discard the top card of your deck. Not bad, honestly. It's a card where you can use Crispin. 160 isn't bad for a single prizer, but then you're milling yourself. So I'm not sure if the trade off is there. I think out of the four, this is definitely the worst card. Maybe during a pre-release, the preventing retreating will be a little sneaky, but I think the other three just have more viability and more utility in the card game than this card.
Yeah, in the pre-release setting, you have a 40 card deck already. So a stage two, multiple energy costs. Depending what's in the kit, you might be able to get that up pretty quickly. It's just one of those. It doesn't make sense in the arena that it's going to be participating in. It's definitely. I think it's by far the weakest of the four. So it's if you get that one, you're not going to be the happiest. Hopefully, it has some really good partners in the kit, so that way you feel confident when you get that kit. But it's an interesting card. It prevents retreating, and then by removing, not just by saying you can't retreat, by saying if you fail this attempt, you can't retreat again, which is a different mechanic than we've seen in the past.
Yeah. So it can be a little disruptive to your opponent's gameplay, but if they flip heads, then they can still retreat, and then you can't use that ability. So we'll see. I will say this is out for deliberation if this card is actually going to be viable or not. But it could be a little sneaky for sure. So those are the four promos that you will get at the pre-release. We don't know in what combination you'll get with them. All we know is those are the four promo cards. So good luck for those who are going. And now, hopefully, y'all get the promo that you're looking for. But with all that being said, I think it's time to actually go into the meat and potatoes of the set. And let's talk a little bit more about the Chaos Rising cards themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the trainers, and then we'll go into the Pokemon. Just that way, when we talk about Pokemon, you have some context with the trainer pool that it can exist in. So the first trainer we're going to start off with is probably the most hotly contested and talked about card in the whole set, which is Special Red Card. Special Red Card is an item card. You can only use it if your opponent has 3 or less prizes, and your opponent shuffles their hand to the bottom of their deck, and then they draw 3 cards. So it's disruption. It's maybe a comeback mechanic. More people are looking at it as a prize manipulation card than a comeback mechanic. But the fact that you can have 4 of these in your deck, you use them mid to late game, and you can really just deflate your opponent's momentum is good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, I think the reason why this card is very good in this format is that we don't have a lot of hand disruption right now. The hand disruption we have currently is Judge, Vivian, which Vivian you're only really seeing in the Decidueye deck, and you're not really seeing that deck at all. Lucian and Harlequin. Those are pretty much all we're seeing for hand disruption. So typically, whenever you draw cards, you're keeping those cards in your hand the whole entire game. And this is very important because one of the decks that this hurts the most is the Alakazam deck, which is very strong in this format because they want all the cards in their hand. And without any, or with very little hand disruption, it's just a super powerful deck. So this kind of like brings that down on level, more of everyone's level. But even then, with special red card being in the format, we saw that it won Fukuoka, which had a special red card. So is it really buffing or nerfing Alakazam? That's a matter of opinion, I will guess. But just in general, it's just another way to hand disrupt your opponent, slow them down a little bit. At this point, we're happy to get something rather than nothing.
I think the biggest issue some players have with this card is the fact that you cannot manage the prize race as much as you think you can. So tip the only because first part of this clause of this card is you can only use it if your opponent has 3 prizes or less. Well, that's easier said than done because there's cards in the format like Dusclops and Dusknoir that will sacrifice themselves and then put your opponent on to that turn. So your
Mm-hmm.
opponent may be trying to be like, all right, I'm going to put you at 4, set up, and then take you down. And then that way you have less time to use this card. And it's like, nope, I'm going to pop my Dusknoir, I'm going to pop my Dusclops, and now I can play this card sooner than what you want me to. So there's some contention going back and forth with this because it is a prize based card, meaning you have to have so many prizes in order to turn it on. And as we've seen in other formats that rely on prize based mechanics, it can get very contentious very quickly. It's very similar to the Ultra Beasts when they first were introduced. They did a lot of prize card manipulation. And that's going to be something that we may see an increase in Dusknoir and Dusclops in decks so they can trigger their red cards sooner.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see. I know a lot of people are excited for this card. I know we just had a local tournament where I was at, and people were complaining. It's like, oh man, like everyone just had everything. I can't wait for special red card. That way, like we can at least minimize what they have in their hand. So we'll wait and see how that plays a role in the Chaos Rising format, which I believe the first tournament we can use these cards is NAIC. I'll double check that, but it's going to be very interesting. The next trainer card we want to talk about is something that's actually going to be very beneficial with one of the major Pokemon cards in this set, and it's Big Catch Net. So shuffle up to 3 water Pokemon and up to 3 basic water energy from your discard pile into your deck. Honestly, anytime where you can shuffle Pokemon and energy is always good. Super Rod was very strong back in the I wouldn't say back in the day. It was just a couple months ago. Ordinary Rod's always been good. Wherever you can utilize both Pokemon and energy back into your deck, everyone loves that type of card. It is more for water decks.
Oh, it's
So
only for
water
water
is
decks.
in, huh?
It's only for water decks. It's water Pokemon or water basic water energy. So unless you're running
Yeah.
basic water energy in your deck, it's for water decks. It's a very specific type of card, unfortunately.
But with that, there's actually a specific card in this set that will love this, and we'll
Oh
get there
yeah.
once we start talking about Pokemon. But I would say this will be good and also Dugong decks, I would say. That way you can get the Dugong back in play. Other than that, like water isn't getting a lot of love, but this Chaos Rising did bring a little bit of that into this format. So we'll see how the Big Catch Net really helps. I would say this is probably also going to be a staple in water GLC decks because getting 6 cards back in your deck is super beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just another card again. Um, as we go more into the trainers, I really think the special red card is the chase card for the trainer portion of this set. But there are a lot of cards that are going to be very niche and very good in their with 1 or 2 decks. And Big Catch Net is just one of them. It's going to be good in a certain archetype, and we'll talk about that archetype in a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. So the next trainer card we want to talk about is a very interesting card. It is Book of Transformation. You must play 2 Books of Transformation cards at once. So we're back into almost like Puzzle Time type of mechanic where you had to play. Well, Puzzle Time allowed you to play 1 or 2, but you really play 2 to get this best value. So what you do is choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. It can be anywhere in play. It doesn't have to be active. It can be on the bench. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So this card is very reminiscent of the supporter back in the day of Ninja Boy. Ninja Boy allowed you to switch your cards, your Pokemon from the active from the discard pile. Or no, it's from your deck, and but everything stayed onto the card. So if the card was poisoned, if the card had 30 damage on it, if it was second turn the card was in play, all those status conditions that the card was carrying stayed in the spot. You just had a new card in where it was sitting. So it's very interesting. But the card has to come out of your discard pile. So it's one of those situations where you have to have the resources in a public zone compared to a private zone like the deck. And I think this card will work very well. Obviously, it works well in evolution decks or in big boxy decks. I think it's one of the two. It's either going to be something that needs to have stages to go up, and you have a lead Pokemon that isn't a part of your stage. Very reminiscent, kind of playing like a Ditto as a fifth basic kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Or this will be used in big boxy decks where you have a whole bunch of big basics that are box kind of feel, kind of reminiscent of like a Dugong box that has been kind of floating around on the internet right now, where you have a whole bunch of different types of Pokemon, and then you can just kind of switch and use the Prism Energy to trigger its attack cost kind of deal. So those are the two type of decks that I'm kind of seeing will see this. Having two in your hand is going to be very hard in the current format. You have to run 3 to 4 of these in your deck to even try to pull it off once. So it's very much a very tricky card. It's going to be very much a finesse card. So I would not be surprised if you don't see it being played often, if not anywhere, because of its difficulty of execution.
Yeah, and for those out there, a more modern example of this card is Thornton, which actually does the same exact thing. You basically switch Pokemon from your discard to your somewhere in play. I believe it was the bench, and you kept everything on there. So if that card was already out for a turn, you can evolve it, stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. It's weird because like you said, it's going to be easy and hard to use this card at the same time. Because hard, like you mentioned, because like you have to get two, and then you have to have the Pokemon in a public zone, and you have to use it at the right time. But it's also a little easier because we also have giant hand sizes right now. But I think the more complicated aspect is using it at the most appropriate time. Because again, we're probably going to play 4 of in this deck, so you're utilizing 4 slots in your 60 card deck on a card where you have to play 2 at a time, and you're only doing 2 of these the whole entire game, and it's like, is it worth it? Or is it just better to like use Night Stretcher or use other Pokemon recursion cards? I don't know. It does remind me of Puzzle Time. It does remind me of some of the cards from the Mew VMAX set that where you had to use something like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't think the power level is there to make this at least viable right now. Maybe once we get more stronger basic Pokemon, this may be a lot better. We have a lot of basic megas, so if you're playing a deck with multiple megas, this may be worth it to switch out. I'm actually kind of thinking a good example would be in Yamega, as we feature on our channel. When you move the 3 energy onto a Pokemon, if you have the Kangaskhan in your deck or in your discard, you can play Book of Transformation and switch that basic Pokemon like Mega Heracross or the Dunsparce or something basically that has the 3 energy. You can power up that Mega Kangaskhan in one shot. That's the only type of example I can think of, like Dev said, was something in the words basic heavy. There was talks about this card, but it was like just like, oh, you have to play 2. There wasn't like, I'm going to use this in the deck. But you know us, we'll try our best to make this card work, and if we can, you'll see it in one of our future videos. So keep an eye out. Maybe we can make it work. If not, it's a card that's out there. So so now we're going to go into some supporters, and the first supporter we're going to talk about is AZ's Tranquility. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you moved a Pokemon EX to your bench in this way, you heal 80 damage. So a healing card, and 80 is actually not that bad. I know a lot of the downfall of playing a EX, especially a basic Mega EX, is that you can't heal it. There's very few healing cards right now. So at least we have a card like AZ Tranquility to heal a pretty good chunk of damage on your Pokemon, but it's your supporter for turn. So is it worth that trade off? I don't know. I think Wally's Compassion will be better. Um, but at the same time, it's just his Pokemon EX, so you can use this on other EX Pokemon as well, like your Meowth, Pheasantipity, anything. I would say a support mon will be probably very good with this, especially if it gets stuck in the active. But overall, compared to the other supporters we have in this game that you rather have in your deck, this one is just more in the mid level for me.
So I think you should be looking at this card as a switch supporter, not a healing supporter. And it's a card that gets around the do lock and other forms of item lock. So what item block strategy you want to do is they want to put a Pokemon in the active that you know you can't manually retreat because it's 2, 3, 4 energy. And they want to lock you and poke you and just shut you down and slow you down. AZ's Tranquility gets around that. So if you're able to just switch your active to the active you want, and then if it happens to be an EX and happens to have damage on it, it heals. I think you really need to look at this card more as a switching card than a healing card. It's just a switching card that happens to have a healing effect in the right conditions. And it gets around
Yeah.
item lock. I think that's the way we need to look at it. I think it is a one or two of in a deck that has a lot of big, beefy retreat costs of support mons, or has a lot of support Pokemon that you don't want in the active, you don't want stuck in the active for different circumstances. And then if you happen to heal, you happen to heal. I think that's the best way of looking at this card and getting the maximum value out of it. I think when you look at this card as a healing card, you really are getting short-sighted because then you're waiting for damage and then you have to switch. And it's, well, I'm just going to switch, get the Pokemon I want in the active, and then be able to get some secondary effects with the switch itself or with the heal itself. I think that's the best way to look at this card.
I agree. I think that is a good way. Reminds me of Kieran in that sense too. So you have maybe 2, 3 Kieran, 2, 3 of AZ Tranquility, and you're never going to get shut down because of retreat lock. So I think that will be a good way to play this card as well.
Absolutely. So the next supporter I want to talk about is Felipe. Felipe is a metal-based supporter. Says attach up to 2 basic metal energy from your discard pile to one of your metal Pokemon. It's an interesting card in terms of where it could be positioned. Um, it obviously pigeonholes itself into a deck that runs metal Pokemon and basic metal energy. I think the best use of this would be a 1 or 2 of in decks that want to do energy acceleration from the discard pile or need energy recursion to kind of keep its momentum. So I'm thinking Metal Maker decks, I'm thinking or Drowlodon EX decks, where if you miss those effects, this kind of helps you keep some momentum in play. Um, Metal historically has high attack costs, so this makes sense to kind of get an attacker out of nowhere kind of feel. But it isn't the best feeling for your supporter. It's really a momentum regainer instead of a momentum changer. So, and I know those sound very similar, but it's one of those situations where you want to keep up your momentum, you play a Felipe. If you want to change the momentum of the match, you might want to play a different supporter.
Yeah, I will say I was excited for this because I do play a lot of metal decks, and lately I've been playing the Heatran where you have to discard the energy, and a lot of times you don't get your energy recyclers. So if you want to uh, kind of chain Heatran into say Mawile or Heatran into like Skarmory EX, this will help you do that. Get the 2 energy and onto whatever Pokemon you want to attack, and then you just have to do 1 manual attachment, which is not hard in those type of decks. Again, this is going to probably be a staple in Metal GLC decks as well to help get the energy into play. But yeah, it's anytime where you can like really accelerate more than one energy from the discard is really good. Yes, it's your supporter for turn. So this will be very good if you already have your board established and you just really need to get the energy going.
Yeah.
From the Japanese list I've only seen like one or two of these in the deck, and you're usually playing it late game. But I will say Archaladon is a very good example of a deck that can utilize this card very well.
Mhm.
Especially if you don't have the Archaladon in hand, you can Felipe and use another attacker. Or even if you already have Archaladon and for some reason you had like retreat and all your Pokemon are already evolved up, you can use Felipe to power up an attacker out of nowhere again.
Mhm.
Again, another very specific type of deck, kind of like with the net card that we talked about earlier. But I think it will help metal decks really get to the next level. And with Chaos Rising, metal does get a decent amount of support. So we'll see. If not, again, I think it's just a one or two of in this list.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's I don't see it being more than that.
So the next card, I'm actually very hype on. I actually had to convince Devin to talk about this in the video. So we're going to talk about Roxy's performance. During your opponent's next turn, this poison Pokemon can't retreat. There's one specific archetype that we will talk about in this video that this is very important for, but it kind of brings more support to the poison mechanic. With Brute Bonnet rotating, poison is not really seeing much play right now. But with a certain card that we will talk about, I think Roxy's performance paired with that is actually very strong. And it helps with getting maybe some easier KOs than what you were expecting. Granted, it is just saying it can't retreat, so it doesn't prevent the opponent from switching. So if they have a switch card or some sort of switching type card, they can still use it, but it makes your opponent use resources to get there. I think this is very fun at least. I'm not saying this is the greatest supporter in the world, but for those poison decks, I think this is actually at least a one or two of in those archetypes.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in the poison archetype. Poison has gotten significantly weaker. If this came out maybe two sets earlier, it'd be very strong. But poison is definitely getting reshifted in this set. We talked about the Crobat already. There's going to be another couple cards we'll talk about that utilize the poison mechanic. So it's a card that belongs with the poison archetype. I'm just not. It's just so, again, a lot of these cards pigeonhole themselves in very specific decks. They're not cards you put in or can put into every deck. I think that's what this set's really missing is a good supporter, like a more universal supporter, like a Lily's, a Professor's Research, an Ends, a Iono, something that can just go into anything. The set definitely was wishing for that and didn't get it.
Yeah, so again, there's only a couple of decks that this will go into, but I'm excited for it because there's a deck that I want to build that this will fit in perfectly for.
Mm-hmm. And the last supporter we're going to talk about is Emma. Emma is the supporter that says your opponent reveals their hand, draw cards equal to the number of Pokemon you see in their hand. Emma is a supporter that combos with another card in this set. It makes sense if you ever played ZA, you know exactly what card they're probably going to link it to. But to me, this Emma card, outside of the combo that we will talk about with the Pokemon later, this is a good card early game. It allows you to get hand knowledge. So even if, say, there's no Pokemon in hand, you get to see what your opponent has in their hand. And if they have Pokemon, say they have the evolutions, they have the basics they haven't put down yet. If you can turn this Emma into a 2 or 3 draw, that's great. Because you play Emma to get to see their hand. You just happen to get cards out of it. Again, it's very similar to the AZ Tranquil. You happen to get something else out of it because you're playing it for a primary purpose. So I think that Emma is probably the card that has the most utility in out of all the supporters in this set. But it isn't a very strong card. It's very conditional draw. It's if you would have to ask me, I would say this is more like a tier 2 type of draw, where Lily is like a tier S. But you can utilize it in situations where either your opponent has a large hand size, you know that you're probably going to get some hits out of it, or early game where they haven't been able to play their cards and haven't been able to execute their evolution strategy yet, so you know you're going to get some hits out of it. So it's one of those cards that has upside, and then the upside's very high, but its floor is very low.
Yeah. I would say if you're going against like a Terra deck, this will be very good your first turn. Just because typically they'll play Fan Rotom, they'll grab Qhoot and like maybe a Noctowl, and they'll have that Noctowl in hand. They're probably going to have other Pokemon in hand that they're going to wait to put down. So I think that will be the best case scenario, or like against like Alakazam, which they're known to have a lot of cards in hand, and they're going to have Pokemon in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wasn't really too hype on this card. Deb did have to convince me about it, but after we talked about it, I think this is actually a pretty decent card. Um, will we see this a lot in competitive play? Probably not, but it does serve a purpose, and I think eventually once we get to maybe a format where we're going to be more evolution based, and the setup they'll have the evolution in hand. I think this is where it will shine more. But for now, maybe not so much.
So the next set of cards we're going to talk about, and I say set, the only stadiums released in this set is Prism Tower in Hyper Rogue and Floette. So these are cards that can either get played together, or honestly, you can play Prism Tower by itself. So Prism Tower is a stadium. Once during each player's turn, you may discard 2 cards to draw 1. Sounds awful. Keep in mind, there's a lot of decks right now that want resources in their discard pile.
I know the perfect deck for this, which I'm excited for, because I didn't think of this until I saw something on the internet. My Typhlosion deck will love this card.
Yep, you can put your.
Because I want to get the Ethans in there.
Yep. Soundledge will love this card. That way you can put cards from your hand into the discard pile. You're putting those excess energies. They're kind of just clogging your hand up. There's a lot of cards that want stuff into the discard pile in order to do their shenanigans. Now, the Hyper Rogue and Floette is you can play this card only if Prism Tower is in play. So basically you put it on top of Prism Tower. And it says each Mega Floette EX gets 150 more HP. So Mega Floette EX, just for reference, has 250 HP. So it turns it into a 400 HP Mega Pokemon. But you have to kind of do a 2-card combo in order to get that there. So it's obviously the second half of the combo is for a very specific archetype where Prism Tower can go in other decks. Prism Tower is the utility card. The Hyper Rogue is the more of the more niche situation. I think Prism Tower is a very good stadium, and then I think the Mega Floette archetype that they are throwing down our throats in this set has all the pieces to be a fantastic deck.
Yeah, the cool thing about this combo is that if you also read the card, you can play this. We said it before. You can play this only if Prism Tower is in play. You can play this card even if Prism Tower was played this turn.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the only time where you can play 2 stadiums in 1 turn.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that at all. So the fact that they're adding that on there, granted, they made that condition where you have to have Prism Tower in play, and they're kind of balancing it to where like you can play both at once versus like you can play Prism Tower, and who knows if that's going to stick around for a turn or not. Just so they can make this Mega Floette archetype work. I like that. It's a nice balance to it. But again, you're forcing yourself to play multiple stadiums, and you're probably playing more than like 2 of each. So it's going to take up a lot of slots in your deck. But I don't feel like that's going to be a hindrance for the Mega Floette deck, because I feel like, as we'll talk about it, it doesn't really need a lot to get going. So it can sacrifice those rooms, those slots in your deck. But at the same time, consistency is king. Will it affect the consistency? Only time will tell. It will be a deck that Dev and I will try out, and if we can make it work, we'll show you all. We'll figure it out, and we'll let y'all know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that these are the only 2 stadiums in Ninja Spinner, and I do like it. And honestly, I'm excited for the Prism Tower. It's going to make my Typhlosion deck even better. I've been playing that nonstop. Yeah, we'll see how these stadiums work, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, it's Interesting. I mean, as you've been seeing, there's a lot of ZA lore and mythology kind of getting tied into this set, which is great to see from the video game perspective.
Exactly. So we got three new special energies, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not really hype about any of these, but let's go over them since we did get three special energies in perfect order. So the first one is going to be Nitro Fire Energy. As long as this is attached to a Pokemon, it provides one fire energy. If an attack used by the fire Pokemon this card is attached to would discard the card, put it into your hand after applying damage and effects of the attack. So it has an okay effect on there. I think this is really good for one of the Mega Charizards. I believe is XEX, where you have to discard the energy. So instead of putting it in your discard, it can go straight into your hand. Um, honestly, I don't know how to feel about that
It feels underwhelming.
because, huh?
It's very underwhelming. It's if that effect of the card said if this was discarded as an effect of attack on by your fire Pokemon at the end of your turn, reattach it from the discard pile. That would have been so much better. It's what is it? I want to say it was like Burning Energy had something like that. I have to try to find the text.
Yeah, there was a fire energy that did that. Just because, like, what I'm not liking about this is like, okay, yeah, it goes in your hand. That's cool. But it's a special energy. You can only attach one energy from your hand to your Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
and when it's in your hand, it's not a fire energy yet. So it kind of it kind of goes
Yeah,
past like any deck where you can like attach multiple basic energies because there have been plenty of decks that does that. But since it's in your hand, it's not an energy type yet. So that's why I'm like, it's okay. At least it doesn't. You're not losing the energy. So if you get judged, it goes back in your deck, stuff like that. But I'd rather it will stay on the Pokemon, kind of like a boomerang effect. Um,
yeah. Burning. It's the
but
card that we were talking about is Burning Energy. If this card was discarded by the attack of a fire Pokemon, this card is attached to attach this card from your discard pile to the Pokemon after attacking. So that boomerang kind of effect, because like you said, the Nitro Fire Energy is energy recursion. But to be 100% honest with you, I'd rather stuff be in the discard pile than my hand. The hand is not
mhm.
as safe as you think it is.
No, not at all. And there's a lot of ways for us to play out of the discard, as we mentioned, versus playing in your hand. Um, this would work if this was a fire energy in your hand. This will play perfectly with Oricorio EX. We're not really seeing that archetype being very strong. And if this was just a fire energy in our hand, this will work perfectly with that deck. And we can actually probably see the Mega Charizard any of the Mega Charizard EX decks do very well.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's a special energy, it doesn't work as strong as we'd like. I think that's why if it was able to keep on that Pokemon, would be a little better. But I don't know. We can find a way to make it work. Um, I don't know. I'm very underwhelmed with Nitro Fire,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have two other special energies. So Dev, you want to talk about the next one?
Yeah, the other one, the second one is Bubble Water Energy. As long as it's attached to a Pokemon, provides a water energy. The water Pokemon this card is attached to recovers from all special conditions, cannot be affected by special conditions. So maximum value comes from a water Pokemon. Special condition healing from an energy is not bad.
No, not at all.
But the issue is we're not really in a format that loves special conditions of any form. Paralysis really isn't a big deal. Sleep isn't a big deal. Burn and poison are not as strong as they used to be. It's just, I think it's a good card in the wrong format, in the wrong era of a format, really.
Yeah, this reminds me of Wash Energy. I believe Energy had a similar effect back in the day. But yeah, this will be very strong if special conditions were good. I would say in the vacuum of Chaos Rising, this card makes sense. This set does try to bring back special conditions, but in reality, those cards are not what we're seeing in tournaments. So this is an interesting card. Maybe this will be good in, again, I always bring up GLC, but GLC has plays with special conditions a little bit. So this may be good in there, but I don't know. It's again, these are very underwhelming energies in my opinion. The next one maybe probably the best out of the three, but even then, like it's not best by that much in my opinion, which hurts my heart because I love this type of deck, and it's magnet metal energy.
Hmm.
So as long as it's attached to Pokemon, it's a metal energy, and the metal Pokemon this card is attached to has no retreat cost. That's awesome.
That's perfect for
But
Metal
the
Pokemon.
problem is, it's great, but we have Air Balloon, and there's also ways to get special energy off. I will also make the argument because of Prague regionals, where we saw special energy being very utilized and very prevalent. People are playing more enhanced hammers. I've been actually telling people play Megaton Blower. Like take out the rest of the ace specs. If we're trying to get rid of those crystals, we're trying to get rid of those rocky energy, the mist energies. You need to play Megaton Blower, and this is just a consequence of that. Um, Again, it's not targeted to metal Pokemon, but if you're playing Magnet Metal Energy, be prepared to lose that um to lose that special energy. Again, none of these special energies are like eye-opening, like game-changing. To me, they're just there.
It sucks because they're being compared to the Perfect Order special energies, where the Grass and the Psychic are just so good. Like we got spoiled by the first trio, or this second trio. They're not bad. They just feel like they're missing something. Even this Magnet Metal Energy is perfect for Metal Pokemon. It is the perfect special energy for this type. But it's going to be casual damage. It's going to be collateral damage to the special energy hate that we're seeing because of how good Rocky Fighting is, Telepathic Psychic, Prism energies, Mist energies. Like it's going to get caught in that crossfire, and we'll see how the kind of the meta reacts to the special energy hate, especially Team Rocket decks are getting popular, or Team Rocket Energy. So I agree, special energy hate and special energy discarding cards in decks are going to go on the rise, and it feels bad that Metal's going to get hit because of it, because this is the perfect Metal energy.
Yeah. So those are the trainer cards and special energies of the set. So with having that knowledge, I think it's time to go into the Pokemon.
Absolutely. So the first
And
Pokemon Sorry. So
sorry.
the first Pokemon we want to talk about, I think, has gotten a lot of attention when it was announced, even before it got standard legal in Japan. And it's the Beedrill EX. So Beedrill EX is a Stage 2 Grass Pokemon, 310 HP, with one attack for a single Grass energy, B Rumble. It does 110 damage times the amount of Beedrill and Beedrill EX you have in play. The problem with this attack, there's no standard Beedrill in the format right now. So it's only Beedrill EX by the time it gets released. But one energy 440 is not bad.
No. And honestly, you only need three to really do the heavy damage. This was showcased on the live stream for Fukuoka, and that deck actually did very well with having Force of Vitality, and you only need one energy to attack. You're not relying on any of the other grass Pokemon you need. I think they played the Ogerpon, if I'm not mistaken, just for draw support and a backup attacker.
Yeah.
But as long as you can get Dawn, Force of Vitality, and your Beedrill line, and just like flood your board with just Beedrills, you're hitting hard, and you can do it really quick.
Yeah, it's. And you can even put in Grand Tree if you want, just to have an extra stadium. It's one of those situations where I think this deck gets a little better when a Beedrill gets. A regular non EX Beedrill gets played. But you also have to keep in mind the way this attack is worded. If a Mega Beedrill EX gets printed, Mega Beedrill EX will not affect this attack. So we're waiting for a baby Beedrill. We can't use a Mega Beedrill, but it still does a lot of damage for such a low energy. And paired with a Teal Mask, it makes perfect sense, especially with all the tools Grass has right now.
Exactly, yeah. Um, I remember watching this and I'm like, oh, this is actually a really fun deck. So this is definitely on my one of my lists of decks to build with Chaos Rising. And I think this is a really strong start to this set. Because again, there's not a lot of cards that are like really impressing me, but this is one of the cards that actually does. Like I'm excited to see how we can make this work. Is it going to be a tier S, tier 1 deck? I don't think so. I think it will belong in a tier 2 bracket, but I still think you can take this to a challenge or even to a cup and do very well with it. So the next card we want to talk about, another grass Pokemon, is Chestnut, which is one of the starters. For it's a stage 2. This is going to be a single prize Pokemon, 180 HP with a Needle Armor ability. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if it's knocked out, place 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. And then for Grass Colas, you have the impound attack for 160. And during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So I think this is actually a very nice counter Pokemon. The 160 as a single prize actually is not that bad, especially with how much Pokemon are weak to grass right now. That can actually one shot a lot of the multi prizes. Granted, you need 3 energy, but with cards like Meganium out there, that's not hard to do. But I think the Needle Armor ability makes this card so much better because you can put up to 9 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, and then you're hitting for 160. That's 250 for a single prize. And that's not even counting if you have Meganium. If you have Meganium in play and you have 3 energy attached to this thing, you're putting 180 damage counters on there
You're still
because
putting
it counts each.
no, because the way the ability reads, it's for each energy card attached. So Meganium says every energy card attached it gives you 2 energy. So the Meganium won't boost the effect of the ability, but can make it a much more easier attacker to do.
I read it the other way, but still, it makes this card so much better. This is actually a pretty decent single prize attack. 3 energy isn't hard to do. Um, Granted, it's not the best card in the world, but I think this is a nice single prize attacker. And if you're already playing a deck where you have a rare candy, the first vitality, getting this up and running isn't that difficult.
Any other typing, this would be an awful card. But because it's grass, and grass has a lot of tools we talked about, it's a good card. It's a fun deck. It forces your opponent to make a decision of, do you really want to do damage to me? Do you really want to take the prize by attacking me? And if they do, they get the counterattack. And then that sets up attacks. If they don't KO themselves from the counterattack, it sets up damage for the next one. So if it was any other type, this would be an awful card, but because it's grass, it's a really good type.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first fire Pokemon I want to talk about is an interesting one. It's Ninetales. So Ninetales is a stage 1 fire type Pokemon, 120 HP. It has 2 attacks, but I'm only really interested in the first attack, Nine-Tailed Reflect. For a single fire type energy, move all damage counters from one of your opponent's bench to their active. And that may not sound good, but to me, you're running a 1-1 line of the Ninetales in a fire deck, or a deck that runs a Prism Energy or something like that. And you are playing it in kind of having that Vulpix in play just so if your opponent retreats away from you, say you don't want Oko, you kind of have some damage kind of sitting there on your opponent's bench, you move that to their active and get the KO, and you get to remove that damage from their board. So if they're a Monkey Dory deck, they can't manipulate it against you or anything like that. You're kind of just doing 2 birds with 1 stone in this move. And I think that is underappreciated in the format of Monkey Dory.
Yeah, exactly. When we were discussing what Pokemon we want to talk about, we both had this on our list for different reasons. I actually think this is a really good card for GLC because it's a single energy, not hard to set up, and even if there's not a lot of damage, set like on whatever attacking Pokemon, if they want to try like do the run and hide a bit strategy, you can knock out the Pokemon they bring up super easily. But yeah, I think the Ninetales is super strong, especially if you're going against like a Mega Pokemon. They retreat it, and they have like say 300 damage, and they bring up like an EX Pokemon. Okay, that's an easy two prize knockout for you for very little like setup. So I think you can really do well with the prize trade with this, um, either in a fire deck or, like you said, even with a deck that plays Prism Energy. As long as you have the spot for a 1/1 line, I think this is an easy inclusion for sure. So the next fire Pokemon that we want to talk about, we already talked about the Delphox, but there is a Mega Fire type Pokemon in this set, and this one is Mega Pyroar EX. So it's a stage 1, 340 Mega Pokemon with 2 attacks. The Ferocious Bellow for 80 for fire and a colorless. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon attack do 50 less. And then for a fire colorless, we have Big Bang Fire for 290 minus. This attack does 10 less damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. I am not impressed with this card, especially with the second attack. I do not like those type of attacks where you do less damage for damage counters on it. I feel like it defeats the purpose of having a Pokemon with very high HP. Um, you're supposed to tank, and it kind of takes away from the purpose of having a tanky Pokemon. I just think this card is just mid. That's just my opinion. If you may have another opinion on this card, but I am not in favor of it.
So its second attack is very much designed around the fact that it evolves from a 70 HP Pokemon. So more than likely, if this Litleo isn't evolved the turn after it's played, it's going to probably get knocked out. 70 HP is not a hard thing to hit anymore. So you're going from 70 to 340. You're going to do 290 because you have no damage counters on it to begin with. The 290 is a game ender. This isn't a mid or early game Pokemon by any stretch of imagination. Its first attack, the Ferocious Bellow, for 80, you do 50 less. They're going to get around that 50 less modifier. It is a Pokemon very similar in terms of Skarmory or Mega Mawile, where you want it at the end of the game. You don't want it mid or early game. You want it at the end of the game. It's going to kind of finish the game off for you. It's going to get you a big blow-up knockout. And that's going to be its role. And it seems like a lot of Mega Pokemon are getting into that role. And it's kind of underwhelming because Mega Pokemon really should be played more because Mega Pokemon allow you to prize map a very different strategy, and you're not able to do that with this Pokemon.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also the energy for me, like 2 fire and a colorless. Yeah, if you can get the energy attachment of 4 and then play Crispin, I can see that. But to me, it forces you to play the Oricorio.
Yeah, it's a Mega Fire. That's the whole point. It wants you to have a combo.
So, but I don't know. We'll fool around with this list. If again with all these megas, we're trying to showcase them on this channel. If we can make it work, we'll definitely have that video out there. I'm just not very hype on this card at all.
No, most people aren't. I'm not trying to say it's a good card. I'm saying it has a very niche strategy of how you're going to execute it, and it has to do that or it's not going to do well at all. Now,
yeah,
the opposite end of the spectrum is the next card, which is Mega Greninja EX, so the poster boy of this set. And Mega Greninja EX is a Stage 2 water Pokemon, 350 HP. It has the ability Mortal Shuriken. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active, you may discard a basic water energy from your hand. In order to use this ability, place 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Very reminiscent of Greninja Break back in the day. Honestly, the entire line from Froakie to Frogadier to this Mega Greninja is very reminiscent of the Greninja line from Breakthrough back in the X and Y era. Frogadier has a Calling Jujutsu, search your deck for 3 Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. The Frogadier from XY just allowed you to just put a whole bunch of Frogadier onto your bench. So it got muted a little bit because that was just broken. The Mega Greninja has a very similar ability and has a very similar attack. 2 water energy, Ninja Spinner. 120 plus, you may put a water energy attached to this Pokemon back in your hand. It does 80 more. So 2 energy, put one back in your hand, 200. You're already putting 60 down anywhere you want. This Pokemon is going to be one of the faces of this upcoming format. People will figure out how to play this if they already haven't, because this archetype has worked in the past and it's going to work again.
To me, this reminds me of Dragapult. It's literally the same exact attack with Phantom Dive, just a little bit more pieces, but it's not the pieces you need are not hard.
Mm-mm.
And Dragapult is so strong. And honestly, I've been seeing less with this and Dragapult together. So the fact that like if you compare both of those um, as one archetype, you can do 200 damage and place 120 damage onto the board. That's very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see how people can make this card work either with Dragapult or its own archetype. I'm excited to see what we can do to make this deck viable and work in our own way as well. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very strong deck, a very strong card, and this card isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. So the next card I actually think is very fun. It's reminiscent of another Mega Evolution, but I think this actually makes this archetype so much better. And we're going to be talking about the Avalugg. So Avalugg is a stage 1, 160 HP water Pokemon with Iceberg Destruction 60 times. Let me know if this sounds familiar. Discard the top 6 cards of your deck. This attack does 60 damage for each basic water energy discarded in this way.
Yeah, it's Mega Bombasnow. Like let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little muted. I think a Mega Bombasnow has a slightly higher damage modifier, but we have seen that the Mega Bombasnow can work. I think this Avalugg will work, and it'll make the games a little longer because you're not kind of doing a 3-for-3 prize trade. Because the Mega Bombasnow really took advantage of the fact it can OHKO other Megas. I think potentially mixing them together might be able to help you again manipulate that prize trade. And pairing this card up with a lot of different Pokemon recursion, especially the big catch net, you'll be able to get those cards that you discarded by accident back into the deck, and as well as getting more energy back in the deck. Like putting back 3 Pokemon and 3 energy with big catch net doesn't feel bad. Even though it kind of be like, oh, you want all this energy. It's like, yeah, sometimes you kind of need more Pokemon to kind of draw into it. So it's an archetype that can work. I think it will optimize a current archetype. I don't think Avalugg by itself is going to be a new deck. I think you're going to meld it into what Mega Bombasnow is to kind of just make Mega Bombasnow kind of a little more stretchy. Instead of just, you're going to kill 2 Megas and that's the game, or I'm going to kill all your Pokemon, that's the game. You're going to kind of be able to play around with that a little bit more.
Yeah, I say take out the Mega Bombsnows, put in the Bergmites and Avalugg, and you have the same thing. Keep the Kyogre. And honestly, as a single prizer, I think this makes more sense for the prize trade versus playing with the Mega Bombsnow. Because if you whiff, okay, you have a 3 prize liability. You're playing a single prize deck the whole entire way through. Maybe you play like maybe a 1/1 of the Nova or Bombsnow just for tankiness purposes, and you can heal with Wally's Compassion. But I think this will actually be a pretty fun road deck.
Mm-hmm.
I know my league, we do Rogue Knights. I think this will be something that a lot of people will want to try out just to see if they can make it work with like 40 energy and just playing a 4/4 line of the Avalugg and just let it be. Yeah, this will just be another fun meme deck, and honestly, we need those. Not everything is about super competitiveness. This mechanic is fun in itself, and if you can get knockouts with it, it's one of those type of decks like everyone's just going to have a laugh.
No, absolutely. It's exactly that. So the next card we want to talk about, we talked about Ampharos. We're going to skip pretty much the rest of the electrics. Ampharos is like 3 of the 4 electric Pokemon. is I want to talk about Mega Floette EX. Mega Floette is another one of those pack art Pokemon. It is, as we've been talking about, has cards designed to kind of just make it usable, and they want you to use it. We talked about the Prism Tower stadiums earlier. So Mega Floette is a basic Mega Pokemon, Psychic type, 250 HP. It has two attacks. For a single Psychic, Gentle Light, heal 30 damage from each Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. We'll talk about why that's significant in a minute. And then Eternal Bloom for 3 Psychic Energy. It does 200. Search your deck for up to 4 basic energy and attach them to your bench Pokemon any way you like. So with Gentle Light, you can counter Monkey Dory decks. Not only are you healing your bench, you are healing damage off their bench that they can't put onto your side. I think that is a very overlooked part of this card. There's another card that's going to be coming. It's a gym promo in Japan that probably won't be a part of the set. It's coming out in May. It's Grisham that Grisham heals 50 on all Pokemon in play as well. I think that's going to be a card that you'll be seeing play to counter the Monkey Dory strategies. And then the
Mm-hmm.
Eternal Bloom for 200, and then just Energy Flood 4 energies onto your board any way you like. You can just kind of, if you can get 2 Eternal Blooms off, your board is set energy wise for the rest of the match.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah,
very,
this is a really strong card for sure. Um, Honestly, as Gentle Light, I didn't think about the Monkey Dory strategy. I will say this, it's not really said in this set, but there is Monkey Dory hate because it's been such a strong card for so long. There's going to be another card we'll talk about that will go against it as well. But yeah, it's like the Gentle Light's really good to combat that. If anything, if you go first, at least get an energy attachment on there. But yeah, Mega Flood, I think they want us to try and make it work. Um, in Japan, we're not really seeing a lot of play with it, but Japan also sees the game a little differently than we do. So I mean, I'm interested to see how we can make this work. And there is another Pokemon we want to pair with Floette, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, this is a really strong card. Having 400 HP as a basic is going to be super powerful if we can pull that off. But yeah, this isn't a bad card. It's not the best card. I think this is workable.
oh yeah, it's a card that will make sense, and it's a card that they want us to play. So they made it easy to play with.
Exactly. So the next card, actually, while we're talking about Floette, let's just talk about the Pokemon that goes with Floette. And there is a Xerneas in this deck, or in this set. It's another basic Pokemon, 130 HP. It has the Geostorm attack for 3 second energy for 30 times, and you do 30 damage times the number of psychic energy attack to all your Pokemon. So
Mm-hmm.
this was the card that we were talking about that goes with the Eternal Bloom attack. If we can get 3 energy onto the Xerneas, and then if you can do it again, that's a what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times 3, 270 damage as a basic single prize Pokemon. That is absurd.
Before modifiers, before anything else. And obviously, the 2 Eternal Blooms would set up multiple Xerneases as well, so you would have a backup attacker as well, on top of the fact that Eternal Bloom's already doing 200 anyway. Um, Xerneas can close out games for you. Xerneas has had attacks like this in the past, so this is not unusual for Xerneas. Thinking about Xerneas break through in the X and Y era. So a lot of people were focusing on the Psy-Spirit Deoxys from this set for a very similar idea. You load a whole bunch of energy and just take advantage of it. I think the Xerneas does load a whole bunch of energy with the Mega Flow EX better. Because if you're just going to take 8 energy out, you might as well power up more than one attacker.
Yeah. So I think that combo will be very well. It's kind of like the Mega Clefable with the Aromatisse combo we talked about in perfect order. Psychic always has those combos that work really well. So I think I'm excited to see how we can make this work. So with that, remember the Emma card we talked about earlier in the episode?
Yep.
I think we have the Pokemon that is supposed to go with it. And if you played the ZA game, this makes perfect sense. So Dev, who is Emma's partner Pokemon?
So Emma's partner Pokemon is Esper. So that's not, even if you played basic X and Y, you knew that. So Esper has an attack for a single colorless energy, or sorry, single psychic energy for 10 plus. If you played Emma from your hand this turn, it does 60 more. 70 damage, single psychic doesn't sound like a lot. The reason why I was talking to Dean about how this card can be very undervalued is because this Esper is going to be your lead Pokemon in a deck. It's not going to be the focus of your deck, but you want to play like maybe 2 Esper, 2 to 3 Emma in your deck, because we talked about how underutilized Emma could be early game. Partner that up with a attacker that can do 70 damage. You're knocking out the Dreepies turn 1. You're knocking out the Froakies turn 1. You're knocking out all these 70 HP basic Pokemon that all these stage 1s and stage 2 evolve into, because everyone's been putting in the 70 HP Pokemon because they survived Dragapult. Well, they may survive Dragapult mid-game, but they won't survive Esper early game. You can put Esper Emma into a Dragapult deck and be able to kind of count around that strategy. I hope you don't. We talked about how Dragapult's kind of overplayed, but I can see the synergy in it as well. So Esper has sneaky value in early game pressure situations.
Yeah, I totally missed this card, and it makes sense, especially early on in the game. You can kind of get your opponent off a little bit. Say, okay, yeah, they're not going to get knock out a 70 HP Pokemon. Well, now we can. So, well, I think it's a little niche, it's a little sneaky, but that's what makes that card so well, like so good. In worst case scenario, you just play it, and then once you do play an Emma, you can at least get some damage on there. There's only a single prize Pokemon anyway, so you're not really losing too much with that with the prize trade there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's time to talk about the last psychic Pokemon that in this set that we want to bring up, and it's another EX Pokemon. And this one is Gourgeist EX. It's a stage 1, 270 EX psychic type Pokemon with 2 attacks. It has the Horror Rondo for 30 plus, and you do 50 more damage for each of your bench Pokemon that has any damage counters on there. And then you have Ghost Touch for 140 for 2 psychic, and you discard a random card from your opponent's hand. This is pairs well with is it a Phantom?
Phantom Trevenant.
Yeah, there's a Phantom and Trevenant card in this list where when you evolve the Phantom, you put damage counters onto the now Trevenant, and you can pair that with the Gourgeist with the Horror Rondo and do, what is it, 50 times 5, 250. You can do 280, assuming all your Pokemon on the bench have damage counters on there. I honestly think Risky Ruins may be a better combo than that. But at the same, regardless how you do it, 280 damage for 1 psychic energy is not a bad deal.
No, and then the Trevenant as well has an attack for 2 psychic, overflowing pain, 60 plus, and there's 10 more for every damage counters on all your opponent's Pokemon. So this Trevenant also will punish any Monkey Dory strategies by, for 2 energy, doing a whole bunch of damage because your opponent wants to have damage counters on their side of the board. So you will have damage counters on your board to power up your Gourgeist. Your opponent, if depending on how they strategize and how they play, they're going to have damage counters on their side of the board. So you can just bring in that Trevenant and be able to do knockouts. So they pair up very well. I mean, it makes sense. They're the Kalos Ghost types in the game, so that makes sense. They have the synergies that work together from a gameplay perspective. But it's all paired up and all kind of works around that Phantom from this set.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of excited to build that deck. And Trevenant's actually your favorite Pokemon, so...
Oh, I'm probably going to make a Trevenant deck without the Gourgeist, to be 100% honest with you. the Gourgeist is going to probably be its own archetype in my eyes. I'm going to make a Trevenant deck. I did with the Hops Trevenant. I'm going to make it with this deck.
Yeah, I think with the Gourgeist, you can probably make this work better with the Risky Ruins. or even to like Team Rocket's Venture Bomb, stuff like that. There's easy ways to gain damage onto your bench anyway, so I'm not really too worried about pairing it with the Trevant. But yeah, it's just some fun psychic type cards in there. So with that, that's all for the psychic Pokemon. Fighting type, I'm not really impressed with the fighting type, to be honest. Are
I'm
you,
not.
Dev?
No, not at all. I mean, the Pseudo Widow allows you to search for 2 books of transformation. That's cool, but not really useful. The Claydol has 50 and then de-evolve. That's the best evolution strategy we have. Not very that strong. But it's fine because the set is so focused on the psychic types that the fighting types really are not going to get much attention anyway, just out of natural weaknesses, video game wise.
Yeah.
Um, we talked about we talked about the dark Pokemon of note, which is the Crobat line. So the next Pokemon really I would want to talk about, it's really something you brought to my attention because I didn't think it was that good of a card until you talked about how it makes other archetypes better because of how gameplay mechanics work, which is the Metagross. So
Yeah.
it's not the Metagross line, just the Metagross. Like everything else, you're not touching. So the Metagross is a Stage 2 Metal Pokemon, 180 HP, that has 2 attacks, but in both cases, we're really only focusing on the second attack, which is triple metal colorless, metallic hammer. It is 150, and you may discard 3 metal energy from this Pokemon, and you will do 150 more. So it makes Metal Maker better because you're already running Metal Maker Metang, so sometimes you might just evolve into the Metagross. But the deck archetype that's actually breaking this card the most is the Slowking deck because of the gameplay mechanics of how this effect of the attack work. So, Dean, explain that mechanic interaction for us.
So this is similar to the Trifrost mechanic that we see in Slowking. That's actually the same deck. Um, the way the mechanic works is that if you have any metal energy, you discard as much as you can, and you can still use the effective attack. Another good example would be the Torrential Pump and Wellspring Ogerpon. If you have the Sparkling Crystal attached, you only have 2 energy on there. The attack does say discard 3 energy to do the extra damage, but with Sparkling Crystal, you don't need the 3 energy to attack. So you just discard as much as you can. So with Slowking, theoretically, you will have a Psychic energy because it has a Psychic energy requirement, and then it's a colorless energy, so you can put a Metal energy on there. You discard the Metal energy, and then you can still do the effect of the attack and add the extra 150, so you can hit for 300 damage with the Seek Inspiration attack, assuming that is the card that gets flipped on top of the deck, which in Slowking, there's so many different ways to do that. So it's it is game breaking. There's been a lot of debate on that interpretation of that ruling, but that is what has been agreed upon in the game in general right now. Again, if we're saying anything inaccurate, let us know in the comments. But that's basically from my quick research on this card.
That's how
I
it's been
don't
ruled
play the
in.
Slowking deck.
That's how it's been ruled in Japan. So they've made the ruling in Japan. They have to apply the same ruling to us. The decisions have already been made on this
Yeah.
interaction. This isn't a hypothetical
Yes.
interaction anymore.
Yeah. It's just we'll see if that comes over to TPCI because honestly, Japan has played different interactions than what we did. It took us 4 months to let us know that you can attach up to for the Orosphere for Mega Lucario, but that's a whole separate conversation. To me, I was excited because I am playing Metal Maker Metang a lot lately. Between that and Typhlosion, those are my 2 pet decks right now. And having this Metagross, when you put in the Brave Bengals, you're hitting for 330 damage, which is a very relevant number right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the Slowking discussion, and I know people are playing this deck. We're all excited because Metagross is another single prize metal attacker, and it's changing up some of the most popular road decks out there right now. This Metagross actually made a Metal Maker Metang deck get top 32 at Fukuoka. So this isn't a okay card. This is actually a very powerful card, making a deck that's doing very well right now. And I'm excited because like I've been on this. I've been liking that archetype in perfect order, and this just makes it powerful. Plus, you have the Felipe to power it up because 4 energy is a lot, and Metal Maker is a completely random ability. So if you can pair that with Felipe and attack late game, it is so strong if you can pull it off. So the next card we'll just briefly talk about, and it's something I talked to Devin about, and I have mixed feelings about Kabalion EX. Is a basic steel type Pokemon 210 HP with the Metal Road ability. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active spot, you may move any amount of metal energy from your Pokemon and play to this Pokemon. This is Iron Leaves with a metal version, ironically, because Iron Leaves is based on Kabalion too. So I just thought of that connection.
Iron Leaves based
It
on
has
Virizion.
the power tackle attack for 2 metal and a colorless, 200 damage, and then you can't attack during the next turn. I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I think this is a really strong metal Pokemon. I just think 200 is not enough right now, but I
It
don't know.
doesn't
I
knock out.
want this card to work.
It doesn't knock out enough without weakness. And that was something you and I were talking about. There's a lot of very powerful psychic Pokemon because fairy doesn't exist, so they most fairy Pokemon have some form of a psychic kind of background to it. And they've been making the psychic Pokemon's weakness darkness instead of metal. Now the Mega Floette is weak to metal, which this can one shot Mega Floette even with its HP buffs. Um, but it just doesn't hit hard enough. I think if it was 220 or 230, it would be a different conversation. Heck, even 210 would be enough. It just doesn't hit enough by itself right now. I think it's just a little underwhelming, and it kind of got positioned in a spot where it really doesn't do as much as you want it to do.
If you play Karen or Black Belt training, you can probably make it work, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's how you fix the math, really, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
another pack art Pokemon we want to talk about is Mega Dragalge EX. It is a Stage 1 Mega Pokemon. It's a Dragon type, 330 HP. It has 2 attacks, and I think both attacks are relevant to some of the conversations we were talking about earlier. So its first attack is Double Colorless. It's Corrosive Liquid. Discard all Pokemon tools and special energies from all of your opponent's Pokemon. We talked about how prevalent special energy have become lately. Mist, Rocky Fighting, Telepathic Psychic, soon to be the Magnet Metal probably. Prism Energy, Team Rocket Energy. You just get rid of all that in one attack and you really put your opponent back. And it's one of those situations where it doesn't fix certain archetypes' problems per se, because the Dragalge EX is an EX, so Crustle just kind of slows down a little bit, but you can get rid of all the special energy in one attack, and I think that's a worthwhile turn. You can get rid
And tools.
and get rid of its tools,
And tool.
get rid of its hero
That's the
speed.
big thing too.
Yeah, I think Pokemon tools are seeing a slight uptick in play. It's not as valuable as they used to be, but I think it's still worth it if your opponent is over or not even overloaded their board or overreached their board. If they're just in a good board state, you can just wipe them back by not taking a KO and being like, all right, next turn I can do something. You have to figure out your something now. So I think that's the beauty of this Corrosive Liquid attack. And then it has another attack for a Water Darkness. Pernicious Poison. I butchered that. I don't care. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. During checkup, place 16 damage counters instead of 1. So do that with Roxy, and now they're not able to retreat, so you're potentially doing 32 damage counters, which pretty much knocks out everything. Because they're not able to retreat, they stay for another turn, that's another 16. So it's a very undervalued card. I think there's people out there building decks. One of them is on this screen, and it's not me.
I
So I think this has the capability of being a meta rearranger. I don't know if this is going to define the meta by any way, shape, or form, but if you can tech this in, depending on how the meta shapes, you can react and kind of put yourself into a better position.
Honestly, if it wasn't for Prague, this deck wouldn't be in such a strong position. I'm not saying this is a tier S deck. I still think this is maybe tier 2 at best. But if you watch the live stream for Prague, one of the Crustle matchups literally had like 8 energy on that Crustle with the Hero's Cape, and most of those energy were special energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they manually attached that thing because they don't play Crispin anymore. And with only playing 2 basic grass energy in that list, if you can corrosive liquid them and then next turn do the second attack, I would say maybe also still put in the enhance hammer for the mist energy. I think this is the one of the few EX decks that can beat Crustle because you're not doing damage to them. You're doing an effective of the attack. So unless they have that mist energy on there, you can one shot that thing in one turn.
Yeah.
And it's the only EX deck that can do that, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's going to this deck or that card will only be as good as special energy pool that exists within. So if special energy are popular, this deck's going to find a place because it is a double colorless attack.
Yeah. But it's still fun. It brings poison a little bit back into the conversation. Pair this with Perilous Jungle, with Petron if you have to. I think this is just going to be a fun deck. I did see a Japan list that has it, so I want to look at that and play around with it myself. Again, that's my specialty. I love status conditions outside of playing with metal decks. I'm very hype on this card. I think this will be a very fun meme card that I can take to my Rogue Knight tournaments and just have a blast with it. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm not sure how we'll do with the rest of the format, but this is probably one of the better decks to deal with Crustle right now, assuming Crustle is going to be as prevalent as it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last type of Pokemon we want to talk about is the colorless type that actually has a couple of notable Pokemon in it. I'm going to briefly go over the first one, which is a Tauros. It is a Cantonian Tauros, and it has an attack, double colors, crowd targeting. Choose one of your Pokemon. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. Flip a coin for each Pokemon with the name Tauros in it, and it does 50 times the amount of heads. So all this I'm saying about this card, and I was telling Dean, is you basically get the Paldean fighting type Paldean Tauros deck, and you get a different Cantonian Tauros, and I think this is a better Cantonian Tauros than the one I was already using. So both attacks get powered up by each other. Now, for this Tauros, you do have to do a double attachment, so either you were running Counter Gain, or you're running a way to get multiple attachments onto this Tauros. But it just makes the Paldean Tauros deck a little better, and I think this is a better Cantonian Tauros than the ones already using.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a better card, and sometimes that's all decks need is a better version of a card that it's already running.
Mm-hmm.
So the next card we want to talk about is actually a very talked about card, and it's the new Patrat. With Watchful Eye ability, if this Pokemon is in play, you and your opponent cannot move damage counters to another Pokemon. So, you know how I talked about how this set does not like Monkey Dory? Patrat does not like Monkey Dory. So as long as this is in play, and you can play multiple, so you are forcing your opponent to take out multiple Patrats. As long as this is in play, Monkey Dory cannot move damage counters around. It's stuck on there, and this is your way to really play against that. And honestly, I think you can play a Patrat with that Paldean Tauros deck. Yes, it decreases the damage output a little bit, but at least you can prevent the Monkey Dory play with it. But it's just anything that can counter Monkey Dory is super strong right now.
I think the base of the conversation for this card is, do you rather play Patrat or Battle Cage? Because Patrat can be countered by Team Rocket's Watchtower. And I think people are going to play Team Rocket's Watchtower to counter Patrat, and then it also ends up countering other colorless abilities in the format. I think if I'm building a deck and I want to put in a Patrat, I'm going to put in one Patrat and one Battle Cage instead of two Patrats, just so I can also counter the counter stadium to my card. But that's how I would
Yeah.
look at a deck building. I think if you go in all in on Patrat, I think you are becoming very susceptible to a very easy counter, which is Team Rocket's Watchtower. Um, but I think if you do a Patrat and a battle cage, you have two different types of cards that can do what you're looking for. And Battle Cage doesn't shut off your abilities to move damage counters off your board. Um, Now it does limit how you do that. So instead of just like monkey drawing your damage onto the active, like that's not what Patrat just wouldn't allow you to do that play at all, or something like that. There's ways of kind of thinking about it in different ways. I think Patrat is probably the second or third best card in the set because its effect on the meta. But I wouldn't do a 2 of in a deck. I would probably still utilize Battle Cage a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So we're on the last card of the set. Dev, what is this last card?
So the last Pokemon card we want to talk about is Cincino EX. It's a Stage 1 Colors Pokemon, 240 HP, so it's not the most powerful card. But it has a very interesting ability. It has Smooth Coat. If any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks, flip a coin if heads prevent that damage. Yes, it's a 50-50 coin flip. It's a 50-50 coin flip that will prevent damage, and that's better than not having an ability to prevent damage. And then it has an attack, Energizing Slap, 1 colorless, 40 times. This attack does 40 damage for each energy attached to this Pokemon. So, for it to do any significant damage, you're going to have to load a crap ton of energy on here, because it will never be able to attack for weakness. But, honestly, with the Smooth Coat ability, late game, it's not a worthwhile Hail Mary play. And you're running a whole bunch of decks that will flood the board with energy, where you can just put if you want to put a 1/1 or 2/2 line in with Mega Floette and just make the Cincino EX your finisher with 5 to 6 energy on it, 50-50 chance you're not going to get return KO'd. Not a great play, but it's a very
No,
reasonable play.
it's a play.
It's a reasonable play, to be
Actually,
quite honest with you. Like, Guts Conkeldurr is a thing in Pokemon Pocket for the same thing. There's plenty of Pokemon with this type of ability that I've seen play in the past.
I think this will be a nice 1/1 line in the Meganium deck, because then you can just put Grass Energy on here and it'll double. And then that's how you can get a very high output on there. Honestly, this may be good with Omega as well, since you are with the attack, you're moving the energy. Put the energy on here, so that could be another way to do some decent amount of damage. Again, it's not an easy way. There isn't any easy way to get a lot of damage in one turn. You're only doing little by little, but it can still set up maybe some chip damage or at the end of the game where you only need to do a little bit, and this can be enough for that little bit, because you only need one energy attachment to really get going.
Yeah.
So there are a couple cards we just want to talk about real quick. We're not totally sure if this is going to be part of Chaos Rising. We think it will be, because these are gym promos that have been released a while ago in Japan, but there hasn't been any official statement. So the first card I want to talk about is Mega Slowbro EX. Just real quick, it's a stage 1 psychic mega Pokemon with the Shelnado spin attack for 180 with 3 psychic energy. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon takes damage from an attack, put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So you can go up to, 300 damage that way, technically. This can either be its own archetype, or this can be a one-of in that Slow King deck that we previously talked about. I think this is a fun card. Again, we are not certain this is part of Chaos Rising. There hasn't been an official statement. But this card's been around for a while, so the likelihood's there, but you never know.
And then the other card that I think was announced to be a part of this set, I'm not sure, is the Mega Galadiax. Stage 2 Mega Pokemon, fighting type, 350 HP, has 2 attacks. First one is Gale Slash for single fighting. 50 and has no damage counters. It does 150 more, so 200 for a single energy is fantastic. And then Marvelous Edge, Fighting Fang Colors for 240 flat. I think running a one of Mega Glade with Prism Energy in a Mega Gardevoir deck would be a very nice tech. I know Mega Gardevoir is not seeing the most amount of play, but it is still something that can cover your fighting. It can cover weaknesses and kind of put more pressure. A single energy for 200 is never a bad attack, even on a stage 2 and a stage 2 archetype.
Yeah. The Again, these are cards we think are gonna. Well, Mega Glade has been confirmed. That was actually just confirmed a couple days ago prior to recording. The Mega Slowbro, we don't know. I would like it to be, honestly. I think this is actually a really fun card. But we won't know until we actually see what's in the list at the pre-release. But with all that being said, I think that's all that we want to talk about for Chaos Rising. So, Dev, any final thoughts with this set?
Like I said in the beginning, this is not a very overwhelming set. This is not a very underwhelming set. I think this is a set that can establish a fun and good competitive baseline. Its biggest issue in especially when it comes to trainers is a lot of its trainers are very much pigeonholing themselves into very niche situations. There's not a lot of utility trainers in this set that kind of does bring back the value of the cards a little bit. And I say value from a gameplay perspective, not from a collector perspective. Um, but this is going to bring a lot of fun archetypes, a lot of fun strategies into the standard format. And I'm very intrigued to see how some of these fun combinations will be used in our region because we have seen what has been done in Japan, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to play it.
Exactly. They see a game a certain way. They're very more on the consistency way because they do best of one, while a lot of our major tournaments are in best of three. So we kind of are a little, we see the game play a little differently than them. But yeah, I'm on the same page as you. It's more of like just a mid set to me, nothing too exciting. But there are a lot of archetypes that I'm excited to build and just have fun with. Again, this is a game. We're supposed to have fun with it. It's not all about going to regionals and trying to win. I love playing these wacky decks in my locals and just having a blast and making my opponents think with what we're doing. I'm excited for a lot of these cards in there, and I do think there are cards in this set that will change the format and the meta. Um, the special red card is definitely one. Pachat is definitely another one. So we'll see how these cards really affect the format starting in late May, early June. But with that, man, I'm excited for another set to be added to our arsenal here. But with that, I think we have a little bit of housekeeping. So, with from what our research shows, the people that watch our videos, a good majority of them are not subscribed to us, right, Dev?
Oh yeah, YouTube tells us most of you guys are not subscribed. So do us a favor, look down below the video, and just click that red subscribe button for us. It's free. It doesn't take any more than just 2 seconds of your time. It helps us greatly. It allows us to show more people our ideas of our deck archetypes, of our set reviews, and different things like that. And while you're at it, just click the notification bell. We post 2 videos a week, sometimes 3. The set review is going to be out of cycle. This is going to be another video we do this week as well. So definitely just do it. That's all. I hate to say it that way, but it doesn't take anything. It doesn't cost anything. A sub on YouTube is free. All it does is take a time. So if you do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Our goal is to try to get closer to 50% sub to unsub. Right now, it's like 80-20. So please, if you can do us a favor, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and again, we appreciate all the support. Let us know your thoughts about these cards in the comments below. We do reply to every comment. We love just interacting with you all. I know the Yamega actually had a lot of conversation in that video, so we just want to continue some more conversations with you all. Let us know your thoughts. A lot of times we ask questions and also advice. So go subscribe to our channel, interact with us. We do read everything. But with all that being said, thank you for watching this week's episode of the Road Deck Chronicles featuring the Chaos Rising set review. Have fun at your pre-release. Let us know what promos you all get. We're gonna live vicariously through y'all because we're not gonna go to any this our locals, unfortunately, this time around. But let us know. We want to hear the fun stories from your locals and all the interactions y'all do. And with all that being said, y'all, thank you. And as always, have fun playing those sneaky decks.
Bye, guys.